They told me the exchange program was competitive. 42 applicants from the Terran Merchant Navigation Corps, 6 slots, and I got one of them on the strength of my stellar plotting scores. My supervisor said it like it was a compliment. I found out later that nobody else had applied for the Verath Academy posting. Apparently word had gotten around. The Verath are chitinous, a hard outer shell over a jointed frame, their faces arranged around a central cluster of eyes that catch light in a way that takes some getting used to. They move quietly for something that looks so armored, which I appreciated, because the dormitory walls were thin. They're also, to a species, deeply proud of their navigation infrastructure. The Verath Stellar Academy had trained pilots for 900 years. Their nav-cores, the integrated guidance systems they developed over the past 2 centuries, were the standard against which every commercial space lane in the sector was measured. They had a saying I learned on my second day. I'll translate it loosely. The old ways are for museums. I was assigned to the advanced simulation track. Standard exchange placement. There were 11 cadets in the cohort, all Verath, all at minimum 2 years ahead of me in formal hours. The instructor, a senior pilot named Shecht, entered my enrollment data into the roster, noted that I was certified in manual stellar plotting, and said nothing for a long moment. Then he added a note to my file. I didn't see what it said until the end of the week, when one of the cadets, Theron, showed me on his tablet with the particular satisfaction of someone sharing a joke he'd been holding since breakfast. The note read, K. Recommend remedial nav-core orientation prior to full simulation participation. Theron waited to see if I'd react. I asked him if the canteen was still open. He seemed mildly disappointed. The Verath simulation suite was remarkable. I'll give them that. The nav-cores processed 12 variable approach solutions in under 4 seconds, displayed them in a layered holographic stacks that you could rotate and dismiss with 2 fingers, and logged every correction automatically. The cadets barely touched the controls during routine runs. They monitored, they confirmed. The core did the geometry. I spent the first 2 watching and the third day asking questions, which the cadets found either charming or exhausting depending on who you asked. What I did not do was hide my plotting kit. A manual stellar plotting kit, for those who haven't done the certification, is a flat case about the size of a hardcover book. Inside, a set of calibrated reference charts, a calculation slide, a set of parallax overlays, stylus. You use them to compute position and trajectory by hand, stellar landmarks, elapsed drift, gravitational references, the way navigators did it before cores existed, and the way we still train it back home, because the certification board has a long memory and doesn't trust any single system unconditionally. It takes time. It is not fast, but it works in a vacuum. It works when the power is intermittent, and it works when everything else has decided not to. I set the case on my station the first morning and didn't make a point of it. Theron noticed it on day 2. By day 3, word had traveled. A cadet named Verath asked me, with genuine curiosity rather than malice, whether I practiced with it often. I said I used it the way a carpenter uses a square. Not because I distrust the power saw, because sometimes the square is what you have. He relayed this to the rest of the cohort later. By the way, the silence changed shape when I walked in the next day. Instructor Shecht ran us through 2 full approach simulations that week. Standard commercial docking scenarios, nothing dramatic. The nav-cores handled both before I'd finished orienting my first overlay. He watched me work the manual check in parallel, said nothing, and logged my sim score as partial participation pending core proficiency review. Fair enough, I wasn't faster. I wasn't trying to be. The 5th day was a long-form exercise. A deep system transit scenario, origin point 2 gravity assists, final approach to a station in a dense debris corridor. The nav-cores were supposed to run the primary solution, while the cadets managed secondary systems and monitored for anomalies. It was the kind of scenario that would take about 40 minutes in the sim, and Shecht had blocked the full morning for it. The cores loaded the scenario at 0810. They began processing the primary solution at 00811. At 084, Flagship Simulator's nav-core threw an error code I hadn't seen before, and I suspect the cadets hadn't either, judging by the way Theron's mandibles stopped moving mid-sentence. Shecht crossed the room in 4 strides and pulled up the diagnostic. I watched him read it twice. The core had encountered a conflicting ephemeris dataset. 2 different reference tables. Incompatible stellar drift values, same timestamp. Normally a redundant system would arbitrate and continue. The redundant system had inherited the same corrupted source data. The core had locked. It was not going to unlock during the exercise window. Shecht's expression, as much as I'd learned to read it, was the controlled stillness of someone doing arithmetic on a problem they hadn't expected to find on this side of the equation. He tried a manual override. The lock held. He tried a data partition reset, still locked. He called a 5-minute technical pause, which the cadets used to exchange looks I didn't need a translation for. The scenario on the display behind him sat frozen. Our simulated vessel, mid-transit, 2 gravity assists plotted, 3rd leg unresolved, free corridor ahead. I was already opening the case. I didn't announce it. There was nothing to announce. I pulled the parallax overlays, identified the stellar references the scenario had established before the lock, and started plotting the 3rd leg from the last confirmed position. The debris corridor was the complication. It required a tighter margin than a standard approach, and the manual calculation for that kind of threading takes patience more than anything else. I worked through it methodically. Shecht's 5 minutes elapsed. Called pause. I kept working. Theron came to look about 8 minutes in. He didn't say anything. He just stood there. A moment later, Verath joined him. The math was not mysterious. It was the same geometry the core would have run, just slower and without the holographic presentation. I finished the 3rd leg at 12 minutes and 4 seconds from the start of the lockout, which I know, because Shecht was running a timer, and he stopped it when I set the stylus down, handed him the overlay with the exit vector plotted on it. He looked at it for a long time. Then he carried it to the simulator console, entered the values manually, and ran the final segment of the scenario. The vessel cleared the debris corridor with 8 meters to spare on the tightest pass. Theron made a sound I didn't have a word for. Neither did he, apparently, because he didn't follow it with anything. The rest of the session was quiet, in the specific way of people who are recalibrating something they'd decided was already settled. Shecht dismissed the cohort at noon. He asked me to stay behind. He didn't apologize. I hadn't expected him to. He asked how long the manual certification took, back home. I told him, 6 weeks of practice sets, a 2-day assessment, certification every 3 years. He asked if it was standard across all Terran navigation programs. I said it was mandatory. He asked why. I thought about how to answer that. Not because the answer was complicated, but because I wanted to get it right. I said, because a core is a very good answer to most problems. But most problems isn't all of them. And you can't train for the edge cases on a system that doesn't let you fail. He didn't respond to that directly. He updated my file. I didn't see what he changed the note to. But when the cohort roster posted the following morning, the notation next to my name no longer said archaic supplemental. It said mandatory cross-track, pending curriculum review. Theron caught me at breakfast and asked if I had a spare copy of the plotting charts. Told him. The certification board published them open access and sent him the link. He seemed slightly annoyed to learn they'd been available the whole time. I finished the exchange program without incident. My final evaluation from Shecht was 3 lines. Technically proficient, methodologically sound, recommended for future cross-program integration. The Verath don't go in for effusive praise, which suits me fine. I keep the plotting kit in the same case. Flat, worn at the corners, fits in a jacket pocket. I've used it 4 times in 20 years outside of training scenarios. 4 is enough to know it's worth carrying. Some of the cadets from that cohort are senior pilots now. I ran into Verath at a transit hub about 2 years back. He was carrying a case about the size of a hardcover book. I didn't say anything about it. Neither did he.